Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer here after Vanderbilt's 67-65 win over Auburn. It's the first win of Jerry Stackhouse's career over Auburn, and it's Vanderbilt's fifth in a row. Tonight, for the second time in a row, it felt like Memorial Magic was real, and it was back. And tonight, you'd have a very hard time arguing that it wasn't real. You have a few recruits sitting down there, and you'd have a hard time talking to them and convincing them that it isn't real. Vanderbilt goes and beats a team that really overwhelmed it in the first half, and maybe the most encouraging thing is Vanderbilt won it with its defense, but as it got down the stretch, it felt like Vanderbilt's offense finally clicked, and a microcosm of that was the last possession. Ezra Manjon goes down the lane and lays it up to win the game, and this place just went nuts. It felt like Auburn kind of had the advantage in terms of fans throughout the night, but you couldn't tell anyone that on the last possession when Vanderbilt really just broke Auburn fans' hearts, and this place exploded. Just a tremendous night for Vanderbilt, and a night that maybe tells you this team has a little bit more than magic. Maybe this team could play beyond the SEC tournament and do something there, whether that's building enough of a resume to get to the tournament over the next few weeks or going to the NIT and winning a few games. It feels like this team has more than a February run in it. It feels like this team does have some magic within it, and that's not only confined to this gym, it's not only confined to February. It feels like this team has the ceiling and the potential to do a lot more than that, and that starts with Robbins, who had 24 points tonight, and his skill set developing the way it has throughout the season has kind of been a microcosm, like I said, of just kind of how this team has developed throughout the year. It felt like after they had barely beat Alabama A&M earlier in the year, they lost to Grambling State. That wasn't a surprise because that's who this team was at that point in the year, but as they beat a team like Tennessee, as they beat a team like Florida on the road, as they blew out South Carolina, and as they beat a team like Auburn tonight, that's also not a huge surprise when thinking back to those games, because that's kind of who this team is now, and it feels like that's kind of the case. It feels like this team knows who it is now, and it's a lot better than it was 2 months ago. This team doesn't only have to rely on the three ball anymore like it did a few weeks ago. It doesn't have to rely on its defense like Stackhouse thought it would have to early in the year. Now this team has both, and maybe most importantly has belief in itself. Ezra Manjon said that they really thought this was their game and they were going to score on that last possession. They aren't really frazzled, based on the word he used, by these situations anymore. And Tennessee was another example of this team kind of just believing, even through the tougher stretches of the second half, that this is their game, they're going to go get it, and they believe in each other. They believe in what Stackhouse is preaching right now, and I wouldn't say that maybe that wasn't the case, but it certainly didn't feel like that at some points throughout the year and throughout this win streak. Hard to argue that they're lying. So just a tremendous, tremendous stretch for Vanderbilt, and one that can continue on Wednesday against an LSU team that hasn't played all that well, lost to South Carolina tonight. Feels like this team has a lot more in it, and as they try to build that resume out, I wouldn't bet against them. Obviously, the numbers aren't in their favor. The computer numbers are the big thing, especially with the defensive efficiency being as low as it is, hurting them in some of those close games early in the year, hurting them. That's obviously going to hurt them, and that's not something that is easily fixable because you can't really change those things. At least the defensive efficiency you can, I guess, but the closer games early in the year, the margin of victory stuff, it's hard to overcome. But now Vanderbilt has 4 quad 1 wins. They have confidence, and they're on a 5-game win streak. So it's really hard to bet against this team right now, and I don't see a reason why you would, because Vanderbilt has proven throughout the last 2 or 3 weeks that they have the dogs to potentially be in that conversation. I don't know if they're quite in it yet because of that resume we said, but if you look at the resume now, certainly a lot to like. 4 quad 1 wins with tonight's win, 3 wins in quad 2, only 1 quad 4 loss. Texas A&M is on the bubble and I think has 1 or 2 less quad 1 wins, 1 less win between the upper 2 quads, and has more quad 4 losses. So Vanderbilt isn't that far off. It's just some computer numbers that are hurting him right now, and I don't know if they can change that ultimately, but feels like if you can kind of go on a run here, you can beat Kentucky. That's a quad 1 win. Florida's a quad 2 at home next weekend. It feels like this is a team that certainly could have some magic in it and maybe even goes dancing, although the numbers aren't in their favor. And I don't know if that hill is climbable at this point in the year. It feels like if there's a team to do it, it's going to be Vanderbilt with the way they're playing right now and the way their veterans have led them. Robbins, like I said. Stackhouse talked yesterday about how Robbins had kind of developed throughout the year, and I was kind of trying to think how exactly has that panned out. It feels like he was kind of the same player over Thanksgiving week as he is now. I think tonight was an example of kind of how he's transformed himself. Tonight, had made 17 free throws, got to the line 20 times. Didn't really get in foul trouble against Johnny Broome and their physical front court in general. I think about 2 months ago, Robbins would have had a nice game, but probably wouldn't have been as effective as he was tonight. Stepped out and hit that three, got to the line all those times, and it felt like early in the year maybe he would have shot away from some of that contact, but tonight he was fearless in the lane, shot that three, and I knew it was going in from the second he shot it, and had that huge block late in the game. The one word I would use to describe Liam Robbins, I already said it, is fearless, and I think tonight he was that, and as a result Vanderbilt was the same. Ezra Manjon just flew through the lane on that last possession with no abandon really, and I think that's kind of where this team's at right now. They believe in each other, they're not going to hesitate, and if there's a team I don't want to bet against right now, it's Vanderbilt, and it's because of the way they've won. Today, the offense wasn't clicking. Auburn's offense obviously isn't great, but the way Vanderbilt defended was probably the best intensity I've seen from them throughout a half the entire year. Ezra Manjon completely shut Wendell Green down throughout the night. Trey Thomas also did a nice job on him. Trey Thomas and Ezra limited Wendell Green to 5 points on 2 of 14 shooting. Stackhouse said that's the best he's seen anyone guard Green this year. Just tremendous performance by that backcourt. And another play that really stood out to me in terms of their intensity was when K.D. Johnson caught it about first or second possession he was in the game. It was also Jordan Wright's first or second possession. Jordan Wright pushed him all the way out to half court and forced a turnover, got the student section riled up. That was the difference tonight in whether Vanderbilt won this game or not. Obviously the late possessions mattered, the free throws mattered late in the game, but Vanderbilt keeping itself in this game with its defense is really what made the difference. And if I had told you that Vanderbilt's offense was 34th in KenPom and their defense was 174th heading into this game, I don't know if you would have believed me. It didn't look like that at all. It felt like Vanderbilt was really embracing the defensive identity that they've been lacking throughout a lot of the year. And although the offense really didn't click all that well, Vanderbilt only shot, 35% from the field. The defense really carried it throughout a lot of the night, and the 7 threes that hit also carried it throughout a lot of the night. Just maybe not the best team they'll see this year, but a team that Vanderbilt hadn't beaten, and a team that falls into quad 1. I don't know if they're going to fall out of it with this loss because Vanderbilt is a quad 3 loss, so Auburn maybe isn't in quad 1 tomorrow morning, but right now Vanderbilt has 4 quad 1 wins and a whole lot of reason for hope, which may be the more important part. They're going to need that, and they're going to need that belief and momentum and buzz as they head into the rest of the schedule. LSU and Baton Rouge. LSU's not great. Vanderbilt probably should beat them by a good amount, but that's a hard place to win. They're going to see Florida again on Saturday. It's hard to beat a team twice, especially one like that. Then you go to Rupp Arena. That's a tough place to win as well. And then you see a bunch of athletes in Mississippi State. And Vanderbilt's got to go at least 3-1 to get themselves in the conversation, and 4-0 to firmly put themselves on the bubble. That might not even completely put them firmly on the bubble just because of numbers, but it feels like Vanderbilt's in a position to be in position if they can win those games. So what I want to take most out of this night is the momentum, the belief, and just the buzz around this program right now, because I think that's maybe the most important thing. The resume obviously was helped tonight, but as you look kind of into the future, it doesn't do all that much for you. Vanderbilt's not on the bubble still about 90th in the net, 90th in KenPom, around there. I think they'll probably move up a little bit in the morning in the net, but still a bit of ways. But there's hope. There hasn't been hope for a while. Maybe that hope started Tennessee, maybe it started South Carolina, but before that it felt like this was not a team that really had that type of hope, really had that type of belief. Now there's a completely different feel to this team. About 3 months ago, would have thought that this team had no hope of postseason play or even getting close to that. Now this team believes in themselves. They're feeling themselves, and that's the big thing to take away tonight. The defense, obviously a story. Liam Robbins, obviously a story, but the intangible factors about this team right now feel magical, feel like what we've described as Memorial magic. Feels like this team has that, and it has it pushing behind them. The only thing I could see being a detriment to this team right now is what it had happened earlier in the season, and that's why we talked about it so heavily throughout earlier in the year, because we didn't expect this. But even with this, that's still a huge detriment to their resume. It's still a huge detriment to kind of what we thought this team could be, but it's feeling itself right now. There's no question about that, and if you're a Vanderbilt fan, that's got to be pretty dang exciting. This is just a team that feels like a team that if it gets an opportunity in March could make things happen, whether that be in the NIT, whether that be in the NCAA tournament. It feels like this team is going to take advantage of whatever opportunity it's given, and I'd be hard-pressed to bet against them right now. Like I said, as they head to the SEC tournament, they probably need a game or two, but at the end of this regular season, I feel good about all those games except Kentucky at Rupp, and I think that's probably going to be the game that's the difference between them being on the bubble and being far off the bubble. If they can't beat Kentucky at Rupp, things could get a little bit different in terms of their resume, but if they go into Rupp and win, and then you have a game or two in the SEC tournament that you can win, I have a hard time not seeing this team in the tournament, although, like I said, the metrics are going to be the big detriment, but right now this team looks like a tournament team. They're playing like a tournament team. They have the confidence of a tournament team. Will the early season hold them back? That's the big story, but tonight, have to enjoy it if you're a Vanderbilt fan. Just a tremendous night. Ezra Manjon goes down the lane, and you feel Memorial magic for the second time in 2 weeks. Just a tremendous night for Vanderbilt, a tremendous night for Jerry Stackhouse. He has an opportunity to knock off the one team left on his list that he hasn't beat, Kentucky, on March 1st. Probably the biggest remaining game for Vanderbilt. Maybe the SEC tournament is even bigger if Vanderbilt beats Kentucky, but tonight felt like the biggest game of the year for Vanderbilt. March 1st is now the one we have circled on our calendar. It feels like that's the one that is really going to determine the direction of this team. That's another Quad 1 game, the last Quad 1 game they'll have until they potentially get one in the SEC tournament. But about an hour ago right here, you felt Memorial magic, and that's not something to take for granted. Vanderbilt has done that twice this year, and we weren't sure if that was going to happen at all. So if you're a Vanderbilt fan, have to enjoy this one, beating Auburn for the first time in Jerry Stackhouse's tenure, extending the winning streak to 5. Did any of us think that would happen a few weeks ago? I certainly didn't. So a lot to like for Vanderbilt, and a lot to like as they head into the future and play the most important stretch of the season and maybe the most important stretch of Jerry Stackhouse's tenure. So thank you guys for watching. God bless, and enjoy that Memorial magic for the night.